Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Week 10 on DraftKings is already here. We're into double digits on the weeks, and I've got a first look at a lineup for you without any research at all. I've just kind of bantered about with my Twitch chat about this for the last 15 minutes, and I wanted to share with you some of the plays that I thought were going to be really high quality plays moving forward in week 10. But obviously we have to wait for Wednesday practice reports, Thursday practice reports, Friday practice reports, inactives on Sunday morning, and everything can change by the time the weekend gets here. None of us were on Jalen Samuels at the time that I recorded this first look for week 9 last week because the Monday Night Football game hadn't happened. James Conner hadn't gotten injured in the fourth quarter yet, and we didn't know really until Friday afternoon that he was probably not going to play. So value can change throughout the week, so you don't have to be as nimble as you do in NBA, but you do have to be willing to pivot and don't get take lock and locked into your players. The lineup that I'm going to put out on this video is not a lineup that I expect you to be able to use. I'm hoping that some of these players are still going to be viable as I do my research throughout the week, but this is just a first look lineup. But I want you to leave me a comment down below and let me know who you think in your first look is going to be the highest owned player in tournaments in week 10. Other than that, I do want to let you guys know that because people always ask me, what do you use? I use dailyroto.com for my research. They have great projections, a fantastic optimizer. They send you alerts throughout the week. They have a Slack chat for all of their subscribers that you can join to try and get tips and talk to other people throughout the week that are subscribed there so you can make yourself a better player. They do a great job. Use one of the links down below in the comments section or simply use promo code SMIZLIFE at checkout for 10% off when you get a new membership. Let's get right to this slate. As always, before we do anything, I'm plugging in a 3K defense. There's one of them. There they are. By the weekend, I will certainly put more work into this. In Best Buys, I'll have the 3 defenses that I suggest playing or that I'm most attracted to this week at different price points, a high price, a mid price, and a low price defense. But for the sake of this first look, let's just plug a 3K defense randomly and then move on because I don't know what defenses are in play without any research on Monday. Looking at quarterback, Lamar Jackson, we've talked about how when you play Christian McCaffrey, you get a running back and a wide receiver all in one. Well, when you play Lamar Jackson, you get a quarterback and a running back all in one. Before the season, the Ravens were telling us that they really did not want to run Lamar Jackson as much as they ran him last year. And they showed us that in the first 3-4 weeks of the year. Last year, he was averaging 17 rush attempts per game. And the first 4 weeks of this season, 16 in week 2 against Arizona, 8, 9. And it looked like they were going to be able to hold him to that about 10 to 12 rush attempts per game. 12 rush attempts per game adds up to like 200 on a season, which is by far going to break the record at quarterback, right? I think the record was 139 rushes by Cam Newton a few years ago. So 200 would completely obliterate that. You look back at his last 4 games and he's run it 16, 14, 19, and 14 times, looking more like he's going to average 15 a game, or at least he has over the past 4 games. If that continues, we're looking at about 220 to 250 carries for Lamar Jackson. That's running back 1 territory, guys. And when you factor in that he can get you touchdowns through the air, though it's not going to be as consistent with only 2 passing touchdowns the last 4 games. We saw what he did to Cincinnati in week 6. He's going to be extremely popular in week 10. 7,300 is a big price to pay. You're going to have to find some value to do it. I typically don't like paying up in my cash game lineup for quarterback, but I understand if you want to just lock in the floor plus ceiling combination with Lamar Jackson with the rushing ability that he has. Patrick Mahomes may be back this week. He may not. We're in a holding pattern on him, so I can't really give you much information on him at this point, but he's Patrick Mahomes. You know who he is. You know what he can do. Jameis Winston, don't care what you think about him in real life. Don't care about crab legs. Don't care about eating W's. Don't care about interceptions. Don't care about any of it. All I care about is that he is essentially a 300-yard bonus machine on DraftKings. He is priced up now to 6,800 because of the matchup. This is not a merit-based price up. This is a matchup-based price up against Arizona as they play up in pace and they can't really stop anybody through the air, and Tampa Bay can't stop anybody through the air. And this game has the highest total on the Sunday slate. So if you want to pay up to play Jameis Winston, you can. Last week, we had a similar situation going against Oakland with Matthew Stafford, where he was priced up to 6,800 and he paid off with 29 DraftKings points. But it's more difficult to find a 6,800 player who doesn't really run the ball all that much, right, at quarterback, who can pay off that value as opposed to somebody that's a little bit lower. Drew Brees going up against Atlanta, who's given up so many passing yards and so many touchdowns through the air. We know what he's got at his disposal with Kamara, if he's back, or Latavius Murray, both of them exceptional running backs in this system. Mike Thomas has been an absolute machine. You know he's going to get his 10 catches. You know he's going to get his 100 yards on the day. And it's just a matter of Drew Brees can just shred this Atlanta Falcons defense and get his touchdowns before they kind of deflate the ball if they're going to win this game by the amount that the spread thinks that they're going to win this game. So he's going to have to get most of it in the first half, unless Atlanta can find a way to stay competitive here. Aaron Rodgers against Carolina. He's up and down. His production's been up and down this year. Still a great quarterback, but they're running the offense a lot through the running backs. Coming off a game against the Chargers where they played slow and they really frustrated Aaron Rodgers. The last two games before that was peak Aaron Rodgers fantasy for us, but 6,600 with the fluctuations that we're seeing in his game, to me, is a little bit too much to pay for. Now, Tampa Bay is facing off against Arizona, and Kyler Murray is somebody that I can wrap my head around paying for. I would love to see him take more shots down the field. They do have at least Christian Kirk back this week at 6,500. I'd rather pay 6,500 for Kyler Murray than pay 6,800 for Jameis Winston. Maybe that's, and this is where I sit on Monday. It's like 11 a.m. on the West Coast on Monday. So that may change by the time the weekend gets here. But for right now, I think that's fine. Looking at some cheaper guys. Matthew Stafford has been absolute hot fire recently. Josh Allen is a great first half quarterback, but really they don't do anything in the second half as he hasn't topped 22 DraftKings points yet. Scoring off against Cleveland, though, that might be the cure to all that ails you, is they've just been playing really bad football. Matt Ryan has been a 300-yard machine playing in a dome. If he's back here, he's thrown for 300 yards in every game except one. If you think that even with the absence of Mo Sanu, they've still got Ridley, they've still got Hooper, they've still got Julio Jones, if you think that he can make the play here coming back from injury, this is something we're going to have to wait and see if he can play this week. They said that they expect him to be a full go after the bye week. So at 6,100, he becomes extremely palatable because of his ability to get that 300-yard bonus basically against anybody that he plays against so far this year. If Brissett sits, they've priced Brian Hoyer way up to sit right underneath him. Sam Darnold, if Sam Darnold was like 5,200 this week, which is probably where he belongs, I don't care if it's because of the matchup with the Giants. He's just been average to awful. In every game this year, 9 interceptions, 6 touchdowns, hasn't really put it together. Maybe he's still suffering some effects of the mononucleosis. He's not in rhythm yet. That's what I mean. Not like he's still sick, but like he has not fully come back from it, at least not hitting the ground running in the way that we had hoped that he would. This was going to be a year where he was going to take a little bit of a leap being his second year. He just hasn't shown that much of it. Now, maybe he can do that against the Giants, but at 5,800, not really where I wanted to see his price this week. So I'm a little taken off of him. I'd rather play Daniel Jones against the Jets at 5,700. Again, talent with his legs, the ability to throw the football, and has some good targets as well with Evan Engram and Tate and Saquon Barkley out of the backfield. There's not really anybody at the super cheap price that I'd be interested in, outside of maybe Tannehill going up against the Chiefs giving up a ton of yards through the air and on the ground to opposing teams this year. And they're going to be playing up in pace as the Titans tend to play very, very slow. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to do that against the Chiefs, especially if Mahomes is back, which is going to force them to play a little bit up in pace. It's going to give them more opportunities. And Tannehill does have some weapons that can do some things against this Chiefs defense. So at 5,100, if he can get you 19, if he can get you 20 points, that's about 4x on that salary. If you want the savings for him, I'm fine with that. I think this week I want to go with whoever's playing Tampa Bay. I'm playing Kyler Murray up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At running back, we're playing Christian McCaffrey. YouTube comments, you were mad at me last week for playing him at 10K. Y'all can suck it because he's amazing, and I'm going to keep playing him even at 10.5. It's not high enough. Okay? So I'm plugging him without question because I think there's enough value at wide receiver in order to sort him out. So if you got to unsub because you don't like me playing a guy who basically gets 30 plus points every week, do whatever you got to do, because I'm playing Christian McCaffrey and I'm going to sort the rest of it out as we move along. Saquon Barkley's price is down, and so is his production from last year. And maybe it's predictably so. Obviously, he's been injured for a little bit, but this is not a good offense. It may get better as the season moves along, right? He may get better. This offense may get a little bit better as the season moves along, but the offensive line is not great. He's not getting the volume in the passing game that he got last year, at least not consistently. 10 targets last game. I love that, right? If he can get those 10 targets, he's never been a guy that they've been willing to give the ball to 20 times plus on the ground. But if he can get you, 8 to 10 targets a week, then he can most certainly pay off his salary, especially at 8,800. I'm interested in Saquon Barkley this week, but I don't think that we can fit him along with Christian McCaffrey unless we come way down to like Ryan Tannehill at 5,100. So I'm going to avoid him for now. But I will have shares of him come the weekend unless something happens to him on Monday night. Aaron Jones has been absolutely fantastic recently, but 9 touches against the Chargers in a game where they only scored 11 points. Peaks and valleys for Aaron Jones. In the top 13 games this year for running backs on DraftKings, Christian McCaffrey has 4 of those 13 top scoring games. Aaron Jones, the only other player with multiples in that top 13. He has 2 of them with 44 points in week 8 and with 52 points in week 5. We know that he's got that explosiveness. We know that he's got the ability in the passing game. And Carolina, this might be a good bounce back spot for him if we've seen running backs have big games against them. 7,400, not too much. James Conner, don't know if he's going to be back yet or not. What is, if you jumped on Jalen Samuels last week, and basically everybody jumped on Jalen Samuels last week, he's been priced up to 6,300 this week, appropriately so. 13 catches in full PPR is just absolutely absurd. But he's not 4,000 anymore. He's now been priced up to a more reasonable price point in the case that Connor might miss this game. Mark Ingram did not have a big game against Cincinnati last time. Did have 15 DraftKings points, but he was priced at 6,600. Now he's at 71. My issue is not Ingram's talent. My issue is his volume. Part of that is because he's getting usurped by his quarterback. He is going to be touchdown dependent in this game against Cincinnati, and to me that makes him only a GPP caliber play. Marlon Mack massively favored and at home and playing against Miami, the absolute dream scenario, but not going to be utilized a lot in the pass game, as we've seen a max of 3 targets from him any week. My chat knows that anytime Marlon Mack's at home and favored, I kind of want to play Marlon Mack, but I'm not going to do it in this first look. I'm going to fight it. And the reason is because LeVeon Bell is only 6,900 and is priced too nicely for those 9 targets, 5 targets, 4 targets that he got each of the last few weeks. Much higher floor, in my opinion, than Marlon Mack. Does not need touchdowns to be effective because of his involvement in the passing game. The Giants are just not very, very good. So I'm going to take LeVeon Bell at 6,900, and we'll move on to our wide receivers. Now, every time I build a first look, I basically try to jam in 70 touches out of my running backs, right? That's been my credo since 2012, right? I want to get as many combined carries and catches out of my running backs, as many opportunities as I can, because I can't predict touchdowns. Nobody can. Anybody who tells you they can is selling you snake oil. But we can predict volume, and we can project who's playing in good matchups, right? So I want to get players that can do that. Typically, that means I'm going to play a running back in flex. That also means that I'm going to pay down at wide receiver most weeks, unless there's a volume spot at running back that opens up, like Jalen Samuels last week at 4K. So if you want to be contrarian this week, paying up for any one of these amazing wide receivers like Michael Thomas, who has one of the highest team totals on the day and has been one of the most consistent players, regardless of who his quarterback is, whether it's Drew Brees or whether it's Teddy Bridgewater. This production is absolutely absurd. He is one of the highest floor players on any slate, and now squares off against one of the best matchups for opposing wide receivers with this matchup against Atlanta at home in the Superdome. All signs point to Michael Thomas having just another big day, and is not touchdown dependent to get you those 25 points that you want to try and give you a shot at a GPP win. But if he gets a touchdown on top of it, or 2, you're looking at a game like you saw against Tampa Bay where he scores 45 points. Feel free to play him if you want. Range would be probably around 18 to 40 points expected out of him. I know that's a wide range, but his floor is based on his 100 yards receiving and 9 catches. And then if he gets you multiple touchdowns, great. Tyreek Hill, boomer bust play, but boomer bust play with volume. He's just too good. Okay. As much of a trash human as he may be, he is too good when on the field, and it does not depend on him having Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, though he is much more dangerous with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. Still put up 6 for 9 and 6 for 8 with Matt Moore the last 2 weeks, including a long touchdown. They just have to be more meticulous about when they're taking shots down the field when Matt Moore is the quarterback versus Patrick Mahomes, who can just fling it at any point in time and just trust him to go up and get it. Mike Evans has seen as much or more volume than anybody over the past 3 weeks as he has asserted his dominance in this Tampa Bay passing game. If you want to attack this Arizona defense, feel free to do it with Mike Evans. You can do it with Godwin also if you want. As I said, if you want to be contrarian, just pay up at wide receiver. You can get Evans, you can get Michael Thomas, and find value running backs that aren't named Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley, and you can get those tournament lineups in there. But understand that there is a lot more variance paying for wide receiver than there is paying for a running back that's going to get you 25 touches. Cooper Kupp, one of my favorite players every single week, still in play this week, but I'm not playing him in this lineup. Because of what we've done here, I have to find ways to get me some value and volume at wide receiver, which is going to take me down here to Christian Kirk going against Tampa Bay, who's been absolute trash against opposing wide receivers. Yes, he had a bad game against San Francisco. You can throw that out because Tampa Bay is about the polar opposite defensively from what San Francisco is. San Francisco gets a ton of pressure on opposing passers. Tampa Bay does not. San Francisco stops the run and stops the pass. Tampa Bay stops the run, but not the pass. So if they are able to find Christian Kirk, I'm expecting more of along the lines of this game against New Orleans, where he sees 8 to 12 targets, catches a lot of those because they're low ADOT throws. They're closer to the line of scrimmage, easier to convert, and hopefully they allow Kyler to take shots down the field at least once or twice to him because he is too much athlete for this Tampa Bay secondary to deal with. If you want to get involved with Hollywood Brown, just understand that there's going to be a lot less volume than most people expect. He saw great volume in weeks 2 and 3, but this is about where he centers out as they're running the ball and just pounding opposing teams as opposed to throwing it. Sammy Watkins has seen great volume, only at 5,100. I think that he's a good value play. If you don't like playing Christian Kirk, you can definitely just go to Sammy Watkins for 100 cheaper against Tennessee. Understand that it's a pace down game, but does that really matter if Mahomes is back? Watkins has 18 targets over the last 2 games, so quietly putting together a solid season, and being underappreciated because aside from week 1, he hasn't really had a blow up game. Jamison Crowder had a ridiculous game last week with 22 DraftKings points, even though they didn't do much as a team against Miami. Just, I don't know about the upside. Yes, there's upside if he catches a bunch of balls, right? So like, they're just not downfield throws. I would probably prefer Robbie Anderson here if I was going to go with a Jets wide receiver trying to attack the Giants. As much as you guys know that I love the volume that Crowder sees. Jarvis Landry coming off of a big game with 13 more targets, but I don't like playing players against Buffalo because that defense is too good. They play too slow. Parker has seen a lot of volume, but diminishing volume the last 3 weeks. Not that that's going to continue, right? But 10, 8, and 4. And playing against Indy, who's a very good defense and is going to slow the pace down and tends to play from ahead when playing at home and the largest favorite on the week. Going to be tough to stuff him in. But Tyler Boyd at 4,700, we've seen the price come way down. And the volume really hasn't. 14 targets, 7 targets, 14 targets, 9 targets, all for 4,700. And for the people that are going to say AJ Green may be back in week 10, that is not a deterrent for me when I want to play Tyler Boyd. In fact, last season and this season combined, if you factor in the games that Tyler Boyd played with AJ Green versus the games that Tyler Boyd played without AJ Green, he's averaging over 4 more points per game in the games where AJ Green played. So it's not a deterrent for me that AJ Green is back. He draws the defenders away from Tyler Boyd and allows him the opportunity to operate in space, which is what you want when you play a player like Tyler Boyd. He's not exceptionally fast. He is a player who sits down and plays the slot, finds openings for his quarterback to give releases to, gets you a lot of targets, and they're easily convertible into catches. And when defenses are paying less attention to Tyler Boyd, he is more likely for you to pay off at DraftKings. So I love the fact that his price has come way down from where it was in week 5 at 6,500, all the way down to 47. I'm going to take the value here and hope that that volume continues against Baltimore. Because if he continues to get that volume at 4,700, he's an absolute smash. And then we've got to find one more play. Corey Davis or AJ Brown. I want the rookie. I want the player that's got the big playability. I want the bigger body around the goal line at 4,300. I'm fine with him. There is another play cheaper. If you wanted to get exposure to that New Orleans Saints offense, just know that I think that he's more of a tournament dart throw. Should see less volume than AJ Brown. So Ted Ginn is in play this week at 3,700. I think he's a good tournament play, especially against Atlanta, but not something that yet I am comfortable enough playing in my cash games. So I'm going to go with AJ Brown here with the increasing volume, playing up in pace against Kansas City, and then having to score. So tight end, the expensive ones are in play, obviously. Kelsey against Tennessee, especially as well as he's played with Matt Moore at quarterback. That volume's been sustainable. Now you're going to get Mahomes back, challenging more downfield. Evan Engram, if you want to pay up for him, fine. We obviously have the Monday Night Football game. I prefer Golden Tate to Evan Engram with the volume that they both received right now. Evan Ingram's price needs to come down for me to feel a little bit more comfortable about him versus somebody like Austin Hooper, whose volume should be sustainable, especially with Mo Sanu leaving there. That opens up a little bit more volume coming his way. Mark Andrews, if you want to attack the Cincinnati defense at 5,200, I think it's a little bit thin for all these guys at the top 5,200 and above. It's a little bit thin based on the standard build because we'd have to pay way down at flex spot if we wanted to get him. Cameron Brate, everybody thought that he was going to be a great value play in week 9 against Seattle. As good as Seattle's been to opposing tight ends, they just don't really utilize the tight end all that much, and they're not going to utilize Cameron Brate all that much. Even though I want to get guys in this matchup, I'm going to have to find somebody who's a little bit cheaper. And if OJ Howard's going to play at 3,300 with the more snaps that he gets than Cameron Brate, and he only runs routes on 50% of his, on 50% of the quarterback's dropbacks, but as many times as they're going to have to drop back and as many touchdowns as I expect from this Tampa Bay offense, he gives me an opportunity to bring it back from that Christian Kirk, Kyler Murray stack. And I'm going to go with OJ Howard for my first look at 3,300 coming back off of injury. I think that we're going to continue that flow chart and then bring us onto our flex spot. We have 5,600 remaining. Robert Woods, Hooper, Drake going against Tampa Bay. I do not like to play running backs against Tampa Bay. I would much prefer to play wide receivers, but running backs against Detroit has been something that we've feasted on all season long. They're not the team that we thought that they were. The Bears are starting to give Montgomery more consistent touches, and I think that this is an opportunity for him to be the second rookie in a row to run for 100 yards against him, as Josh Jacobs did it last week. So 5,300 for him in the flex, giving us 300 left. Chat is telling me now that LeVeon Bell just had an MRI on his knee, which just came out as we were recording this. Had an MRI on his knee Monday. Manish Mehta of the Daily News reports. So we're going to have to see what that means for LeVeon Bell. We have 300 left. We could potentially change him out. We could go to Marlon Mack. We could go to Nick Chubb. We could go to Mark Ingram. For the purposes of this, if he's healthy, I prefer Bell, but just in case he's out, and I don't want people in YouTube kind of saying, he had an MRI on his knee. Yes, we know he had an MRI on his knee. We're going to go with Marlon Mack instead. If Bell is healthy and ready to go, I prefer Bell to Marlon Mack, but that's the lineup that we're going with. Thank you guys for joining me. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure that you ring that notifications bell, because between NFL and NBA, there's a ton of content coming out on this channel. And drop by Twitch. There's a link down below in the description that you guys can find to join us. I stream 6 days a week during NFL season. I would love to hear from you. So drop by the stream, and we'll catch up to you later. Bye.
He's a legend.